Hello everyone and welcome to Essential Pro Concepts, a toolkit of practical concepts for the advancing guitar player. Episode 1, Sibling Arpeggios. I use this concept as a means of covering distance on the fretboard without relying on conventional linear scale lines. The concept works best when combined with hybrid picking and lends a fluid, intervallic quality to your melodies. This series is less about teaching licks and more about arming you with ideas to take forward into any musical context. So with that said, let's take a look at the musical context of the example we're going to be working on today. The intro jam was based on the following progression: A minor, B minor, C, A minor, B minor, C, E minor, D. If we consider the structure of any major key, there are clues that will help us analyze this progression. The 2 and 3 chords in a major key are the only adjacent minor chords, and the 4 and 5 chords in a major key are the only adjacent major chords. If we apply that logic to the progression we just outlined, we can probably assume that our A minor and our B minor are our 2 and 3 chord, and that our C and D are our 4 and our 5. From this, we can assume that we are on the key of G major, either by taking our 2 minor chord and descending one tone from there, which takes us to G, or guitar players sometimes prefer the reference point of the 5th chord within the key. In this case, it is, of course, D major, because visually we can view that as being the upper note in a power chord, which would be rooted at G. So from this, we can determine that our progression in Roman numerals would be 2 minor, 3 minor, 4, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4, 6 minor, 5. If I play through the progression, you'll notice that the A minor chord is where the progression feels at rest, which means that we are in A Dorian. Now we understand the context, let's move on to the concept. Sibling arpeggios, as I'm currently coining them, rely on the physical commonalities of chord families when laid out on the fretboard. Chord families are a means of categorizing the 7 chords of a major key according to shared chord tones. The tonic chord family comprises of the chords 1, 3 minor and 6 minor. In the key of G, that's going to be G, B minor, and E minor. When represented as standard notation, we see that these 3 chords have 3 chord tones in common. Similarly, in the subdominant family, you'll notice that the 2 minor and the 4 chord also share 3 chord tones. We have the 2 minor in this case being an A minor 7, and the 4 being a C major 7. You may also recognize these as relative major and minor chords. Finally, the 5 and 7 chords of the key comprise the dominant family. Let's see how this looks on the fretboard. If we take a G major 7 arpeggio, you will notice that the second note in the arpeggio, B, is the tonic of our 3 minor chord, B minor 7. G major 7 and B minor 7 both belong to our tonic family, and the practical benefit of this is because of their 3 shared chord tones, they fit under the hand very comfortably when played in the same position. For example, we have G major 7, which is made up of the notes G, B, D, F sharp. And then if we start our B minor 7 arpeggio from this point, we get the notes B, D, F sharp, and A. You'll notice that 3 of those we already played in the G major 7. Let's test our theory with the remaining chord of our tonic family, E minor 7. Sure enough, the second note in the arpeggio, G, is the tonic of our 1 chord. So when we strive to play both arpeggios in position, we end up with that. So to roll this idea out to the whole key, we have our tonic family, which would be G major 7 and B minor 7. And we would have E minor 7 and G major 7. If we take our sub-dominant family, that would give us A minor 7 and C major 7. Notice how, again, we are localizing both arpeggios to the same position on the fretboard. And finally, we would have our dominant family, which would be a D dominant 7 arpeggio and an F sharp minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio. Altogether, this gives us unnecessary. It's worth noting that with all of these arpeggios, they share the same distribution of notes per string, either 2, 1, 1. So 2 notes on the first string, 1 on the next, and then 1 on the next, or 1, 1, 2. 1 on the lower string, 1 on the next, and then our 2 notes on the final string. In terms of the right hand, we're going to be playing these as follows. For instance, with the G major 7, we would use a pick, hammer, middle finger on the picking hand, ring finger on the picking hand. Okay? And you're striving to keep those as dynamically even as possible. And if we take the B minor 7 arpeggio, we have pick, middle finger on the picking hand, ring finger, and then hammer. And that remains the same regardless of which quality of arpeggios you're doing. In terms of application, you can use any diatonic arpeggio from the key over any diatonic chord from the key. For instance, if I'm playing over an A minor 7 chord, I am not restricted to simply playing the A minor 7 arpeggio. Instead, I might do something like this. This is called superimposition. Be aware that certain arpeggios will sound more consonant and others more dissonant. This relates to how the notes contained within the arpeggio relate to the underlying harmony. Common chord tones equals consonant, adjacent chord tones are going to sound more dissonant. It's worth noting that these shapes can of course be played descending as well. So now you have the concept, try creating your own lines. I will put these arpeggio shapes along with the phrases from the solo and the backing track up on the Session Heroes Patreon if you want to dive deeper into this idea. Thanks folks, see you next time.